A group of Pac-12 players from several schools, potentially hundreds of players in total, is threatening to opt out of preseason camps and games over concerns about racial injustice and the coronavirus pandemic and other issues. Among some of the notable player demands that appeared in the Players Tribune, allowing student athletes to opt out of play during the pandemic without losing eligibility or a spot on the team, prohibiting any COVID-19 agreements that waive liability, creating a task force to address social injustice issues, and directing 2% of conference revenue to support financial aid for low-income black students, community initiatives, and development programs for college athletes on campus. We talked about this an hour ago, and our Heather Dinich told us that it's potentially upwards of 400 players who are involved in this now. And I want to talk about it. Jalen Rose back with us, Riddick back with us, and Paul Finebaum joins us for the first time this morning. Paul, I'll just start with you. What is your initial reaction? 400 players in the Pac-12. This obviously is very significant. What's your first reaction?
It's incredibly significant and important, Greeny, because college football has been trying to stage this season without really very much concern for the player. And I think it's about time players are standing up. They have had conversations with leaders, and they're not getting satisfactory results. So if this goes from the Pac-12 across the country, and I think there's a reasonable chance it could pick up steam, this college football season is going to be turned upside down.
And not only that, Paul, but could you see a world in which this creates the beginning of a new normal in college football in a huge way, in which the players recognize the leverage and power they have, and the dynamic really meaningfully changes beyond the pandemic?
Absolutely, because the players have been royally screwed, in my opinion, by their leaders and by the people that they depend on. And the NCAA is the culprit here, Greeny, because the NCAA is still trying to put off this name, image, and likeness situation. And now the players are saying, that's not enough. We want to cut at the gate. Now, it's a very difficult issue to get with, because if you start paying players, then you have a Title IX issue, and we'll save that for another day. But this is one of the most significant moments in the history of college athletics. The entire system is under assault, and I'm not sure when we get through this on the other side, the NCAA will still be standing.
Again, Jalen Rose, you played on one of the most famous college basketball teams, college sports teams of all time. As you read through this story, what's your reaction?
It's just a continual, it's just a gradual chipping away at the model that we know as the NCAA. And for basketball, you see other options started to present itself. At a time, players in basketball could go to the pros right after high school, and now you see that rule has changed. Now it may go back. There was a time when I was in college, Greeny, I remember John Thompson had the courage to walk off during games as the tip happened. And he was doing it to basically bring light to the Proposition 48 rule. And being a collegiate student at the time, what a lot of people don't know, he was actually had his network reach out to Michigan and the Fab Five. And if that would have continued, there was a chance that we would have been able to follow in his footsteps. So 25 years later, this is major for the players to understand you got all the power. Like, there was a time, trust me, y'all, that everybody was like, shut up. Just be happy that you have a scholarship. If that was me, I would do anything to be in your position. And then people realize what? Collegiate athletics make a lot of money. They started to pay attention to what the school made, what the coach make, the endorsements, the shoe deals, the television deals, and they're like, you know what, we can share into that money. So I appreciate these players having the wealth of knowledge to understand their power and trying to use it to their benefit.
Now, you guys in a different lifetime were really so far ahead of all of that. Riddick, I'm just curious to hear your perspective on all of this.
Yeah, I think you've heard me numerous times say that the number one thing, especially when we talk about it from an NFL perspective, which is when we talk about the power of the players the most, the number one thing we talk about that players have at their disposal, maybe the only thing that they have at their disposal when it comes to really exercising leverage, is withholding their services. That's what they have in their back pocket at all times. And now we're seeing it that players on the collegiate level are starting to recognize that. The question is whether or not they can mobilize en masse and strategize en masse to where it really has a tangible effect on the game. Not just the Pac-12, but the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, the ACC overall. Because I think Tim Hasselbeck brought up a good point. There's so many players And the depth on a 100-man roster in the NFL is so vast in terms of having 5-star, 4-star, 3-star players that could just step in and take the place of a group of 400 guys in the Pac-12 who maybe decide en masse to sit out, that you just don't know if it'll have the meaningful effect and really like sway decision makers that are really profiting off of this, amateur sport to the point where they will actually give the players what they want and really start to view the players as partners and view the players as very valuable parts of that huge machine, which is NCAA intercollegiate athletics, which we know is a huge money-making machine. Do they have enough right now as far as how they have mobilized and how they're strategizing to really make a tangible difference? Do they have people arguing on their behalf? Are they really organized enough to really see this through and have it, as Paul just said, when they come out on the other side, have it look much, much different? That's what we're waiting to see. The momentum is there. It's started now. Can they see it all the way through? And you know what's bizarre to me anyway? Is that we're talking about just taking care of 18, 19, 20-year-olds. That's what we're talking about. Why is that something to where you have to really get together and have to beat people over the head to look out for the best interests of the youth of our country, playing a sport for our entertainment that they really don't benefit much off of? That's just amazing to me. That blows my mind. That is what is at the crux of all of this.
And Paul, let me give you the final word, if I could. Jalen, I'm sorry, but I'm out of time. But Paul, I just want to ask you, what, if anything, you're hearing from the people in the position of authority, the administrators, the coaches, and others relative to this and their concerns about it turning on them?
Well, there's already some concern. There's a report out today in Dallas that the head coach at Washington State told one of his players, "You're going the wrong direction." If things like that happen, this movement will pick up speed. So it's a little bit early, Greeny, but I think because of social media, a lot of players are going to be involved. And I don't think there's anything that the administrators can say to these players that they care about. They've already been misled and lied to during this COVID crisis.